Hi, I'm Beep. My brother Honk is running the camera today. We are the Beep and Honk Show. We are drone bees and we answer tech questions. Today's question comes from Marona, who asks, how do you get started trying to learn how to fly a drone? What do you need to buy? And what are some basic things I should know? Wow, this is an awesome set of questions. I love these because many people don't realize how straightforward it is to get started, but there's also a lot of new stuff that you have to take in. So Marona, the things that you need to buy are a computer, which many of us probably already have, an ELRS radio transmitter, and a software simulator. If you have looked up online and asked this before, you probably see the answer of get a radio and a sim first. It's good advice, but we will cover a lot more right now, in depth. We will walk you through the basics of your radio transmitter, computer setup, and your simulator as well. We will also explore all the common problems which many of you will encounter along the way. So let's begin. Radio transmitter selection is the first thing to be concerned about. I will be showing several of the more popular radios from the major ELRS brands on the market today. All of these transmitters can be plugged into a computer and be recognized as standard game controllers for simulators to use. Of course, they can also fully function as radio transmitters for actual FPV drones in flight too. None of these radios are automatically the best. There's a trade-off of various features at play. For example, this one has a color screen, full-size gimbals, and lots of other neat features. But it costs a lot more without giving you any real benefit in a simulator. This other one is very similar, with many of the same features, but it has no color screen. Remember that a color screen is really of limited use to FPV pilots because you're going to be looking through the world through goggles and never really looking at the transmitter. Even in a simulator, there is no good reason to look away from the screen while flying. So a color screen should just be one of those luxury items basically. It's nice, but it won't make you fly better. If you're not sure what to choose, I would recommend this model to start off. It's quite affordable and has everything you need to enjoy a full-featured experience with both simulators and real FPV drones. It is such a solid model that many seasoned pilots actually like using it as well. This model is the cheapest you can go without running into some potentially serious limitations that will hurt your overall experience, especially if you're looking to make customizations or other adjustments. Just make sure that you purchase the ELRS version, not one of the other options which may not include ELRS protocol support, such as CC2500 or the 4-in-1 option. If you don't know what ELRS and Edge TX is about, we previously made a video which discusses that in detail here. This entry-level model is the cheapest, but understand that the lowest cost options have serious drawbacks. Most notably, it has no screen. So making configuration changes requires you to plug it into a computer and use custom software, or in this case a web browser application, to make adjustments. Experienced pilots won't be too bothered by this, but if you're new and you're looking to configure something on the radio to customize how it behaves for both simulator and real FPV flight, this process of unplugging, changing into config mode, launching the web page, changing a setting, and then restarting the whole process just to verify that something worked can be very frustrating. Also, very cheap ALRS radio transmitters often feature cut-down firmware options or leave out important features entirely. Is it possible to use a gaming controller to learn FPV? Sure, it's possible, but it's far from ideal. Gamepad joysticks lack the mechanical centering precision that proper radio transmitters have. While some gamepad models might work in a pinch, you're going to be fighting the controller the whole time that you're in the air. We've actually covered a lot of stuff here. If it feels like drinking from the fire hose, don't worry. The good news is that any modern ELRS radio will work to get you started. For the rest of this demonstration, I will be selecting this model to work with since it will most likely be the most popular choice for people trying their hand at FPV flight. Before we plug anything in, you will notice that this model has two USB-C ports, one on the bottom and one on top. This is because radios from this generation and prior typically use the bottom plug to charge the internal batteries only, and the top plug for connecting to a computer. Newer radio systems tend to release only one USB-C connection, seamlessly blending the two roles together. So before we start flying, it's worth pointing out one other thing. The slang between pinchers and thumbers. This is entirely subjective, and some pilots like to fly by pinching the sticks as shown, while others like to use just their thumbs. There are even some who use both at the same time. Some radio transmitters feature ergonomics which might favor one group of users over another, but the radio I have pictured here actually seems to be well liked by both crowds, which really helps make it a great choice for those starting out. You will discover over time what process works best for your own use case. Now we will cover the basic computer requirements for running a simulator. Pictured is a fairly basic modern computer which will be able to run most simulators perfectly fine. You do not need the sort of hardware commonly associated with computer gaming rigs, but 3D accelerated content is the norm, and having some intermediate level capability on your GPU will really help. At time of writing, a handful of simulators support very low hardware requirements, but running them at low detail levels or resolutions and frame rates is really going to make learning much more difficult. The software titles I will be showing today are downloaded from Steam, so if you do not have an account with them, you can make one for free and then begin your journey testing different platforms out as you go along. There are many simulators to choose from, and in this video I'll highlight two options just to keep on topic of solving the typical problems that most new people run into. The first is The Zone, developed by Nils Wallenbroek, and the second is Uncrashed, developed by Louis Rochette. Uncrashed is much more full-featured and heavy with visual effects, and it has a broader appeal, while The Zone is much more minimalist with a focus on pilots who want to practice acrobatic tricks. Before you run the simulator, you need to turn on your radio controller and power it up. If you've never turned on the radio before, one common thing to all ELRS systems is that you have to hold down the power button for a while before the system allows you to start up. This is to prevent both accidental power-ups and power-downs. The throttle warning is also a common thing to see. This is to prevent accidental arming and throttle activation of a drone. Lower the stick to its idle position and the transmitter will continue its startup sequence. Now, once you plug in your transmitter, on the screen of your transmitter, it's going to ask you what you want to do. And there's three choices. The one we want to pick is joystick or HID mode. And in the case of this radio, there's a scroll wheel here which lets you choose. And once you choose what you want, you push down on it. And we want joystick mode. Now, the storage option allows the computer to access the flash media on the transmitter like a drive. And the VCP option is usually when you want to apply a firmware update to your transmitter. But we're not going to go into either of those right now. You also might have noticed that the left stick seems limp. This is actually normal. Throttle is up and down on this stick, with full throttle all the way at the top and idle at the bottom. You actually don't want it to be self-centering, and there should be just a tiny bit of resistance where the stick just stops wherever you leave it. And it's going to feel very weird in the beginning, but you will adapt to it over time. So let's start the simulator now, and we're going to go into Uncrashed. While it's starting, I just wanted to cover also the control layout. As you know, this stick is throttle, and I'm going to use a little helper to explain. This stick is yaw, and this changes sort of looking left and right. On the other stick, you have roll, and then you have pitch. Now, when you hit the throttle, if your drone is hovering and you increase your throttle, it will go up, and if you lower it, it'll come down. Combining it with pitch and throttle will make it go forward or back. Usually you want to go forward. Okay, so let's configure our controls here. And again, if you watch the screen, you'll see the controls are moving linked to the screen. Here's my throttle. Here's my yaw. Here's my pitch. And here's my roll. But if you've noticed, something isn't quite right. It's not centering. Well, what's going on here is that the trims are activated on your radio. And trims are used to set a neutral point, and that's very useful for something like a car, a truck, or an airplane, which uses mechanical linkages. But drones don't have anything like that, and you don't need to use the trim for any of your channels. So in this particular radio, I have trims on each side, and they're 4-position switches. And because my roll is messed up, I want to bring it back. It's going to take a little while, but you can see the dot moving. I'm bringing it back to center. Now it's back into center. And as you can see, when I move my roll, the stick actually goes back to normal. Now it looks like my trim is also a little bit off on my yaw. So as you can see, I need to move that one back as well. Great. So there's one more channel that we care about, and that is arm or disarm. And when you start a drone, before you take off, you have to arm it. And when you're in the air and you're flying, after you land, you disarm. And if you disarm while the drone is in the air, it cuts all the power to the motors and it just falls out of the sky. There's one more mode we're going to change here, and that's our flight mode. And I've assigned it to this rocker switch. Now, we'll get into flight modes in a minute. But now that we've got this all set up here, we can go back and then start a new level for ourselves. I guess I'll just pick this one. Okay, so right now, before I fly, I have to arm the drone. So I'm using this shoulder button here. Now it's armed, but there's also a flight mode that we can control. This particular sim uses 3 flight modes that are available. There's 3D, which we won't really get into. There's angle, and then there's acro. So most people will want to learn in angle mode because that's the most restricted mode, and we're actually going to fly right now. I'm going to give a little bit of throttle. And the thing about angle mode is it will always make the drone try to level itself. And if you watch, I let go of the sticks, it's just trying to stay mostly level. This is good for beginners, but it's not a great mode once you've figured out how to fly it, because if you stay with angle too long, and the convention is that once you learn how to do basic things, you need to get out of angle mode as soon as you can. And I agree with this, because if you stay in angle mode, it's like learning how to ride a bicycle with training wheels, and then just learning how to ride fast with those training wheels. You're going to develop a lot of bad habits. And as you can see, angle prevents me from getting lost, because if I let go of my sticks, it's going to try and keep me upright. And again, when you're first starting out, this can be kind of nice. But if you're actually trying to do something, angle mode will get in the way and fight you most of the time. Okay, I'm going to now land and switch into acro mode. When you first start off, you should practice slow flight. Don't go too far, don't go too high. Try to do things that will just get you around. So I'm landing. I'm going to change my flight mode to acro, and then I'm going to go back in the air. Now, if you notice, one difference with acro is wherever I point my drone, it's going to stay in that direction. So if I let go of the sticks, it's just going to follow whatever direction I last gave it. And if you watch carefully, I don't need to give a lot of movement. Everything should be very fine and very gradual. Also, you shouldn't have to hit full throttle all the time. That's not something that's good for drones, even in a sim. Because in real life, these short bursts of throttle are meant to help get you out of situations like if you're about to hit the ground. Or a tree. So, prolonged use of throttle will actually cause you to burn out potentially your battery, motors, or speed control, or all three. And as you can see with acro, I have much more ability to basically send the drone where I want it to go without it having to fight me every single time if I let go of the stick. But this also means that if the drone is not automatically righting itself, you have to be aware of what it's doing. So again, when you start off, just practice little things and try to focus on gentle movements. Don't fly fast. You will actually learn more by flying low and slow. Like here, I'm just going to fly through these trees because that just seems like something a bee would do. And keep everything really calm and stable, and try not to make excessive movements like this. Try and keep everything as clean as you can make it. And then you can gradually improve. Okay, I'm going to land now and show you another sim. Okay, this is the zone, and it has a much simpler setup, and the graphics aren't as intense as Uncrashed. But one of the reasons why many pilots seem to like it is, it has, in my own opinion, achieved something that most of the other sims haven't, and that is approximating how gravity actually feels in real life, although it's not perfect. It's close though. And the biggest problem with sims as you fly and then you switch over to real drones is the drones tend to float much more in simulators. But in Uncrashed, this is not as obvious, which is one of the reasons why I highlight it, because I think it has actually a pretty good balance. But the zone improves upon this and really makes the feeling of falling a lot more realistic and a lot closer to what I typically see when I'm actually flying about. Now, I'm not a very strong acrobatic pilot, but it's still fun to come on here and try to learn something, especially when most of the moves that other acrobatic pilots I fly with are way beyond what I'm capable of. So the sim helps me learn things very slowly, bit by bit. And I just wanted to show you the sensation, whoa, and I just crashed. Yes, the sensation of crashing, but that the gravity really feels dialed in with this sim compared to most of the others that I've tried. Now, the only drawback of this sim is that the graphics don't seem as elegant, but that's not why you play The Sims. You learn to develop muscle memories and use them in real flight, even if the simulator is not perfect. So that's all I really wanted to show you, that start off small like what I'm doing. I can't do the kind of stunts and tricks that pretty much, I would say, a good majority of the players of the zone are capable of, so I'm content to just do slow, gentle flying, going low, and just getting used to things slowly before I try to bite off more than I can chew, like I just did. Okay, let's go back to the workbench. Anyone who wants to get started with learning FPV drones should really just stick with buying a radio transmitter and a simulator before purchasing any other hardware. Note that some people have talked about using goggles with the simulator, but you really don't even need to do that. Now is not the time to worry about purchasing anything else, and just use your computer's monitor for the time being. You really don't gain anything from getting used to wearing goggles. So, again, whenever you see online someone saying get a sim and get a radio, this is great advice. Because in the beginning, you might actually not know what kind of flying you want to do. It's completely normal to start off with assumptions like wanting to do acrobatics and neat tricks, only to discover that the focused, clean flying of something more cinematic is what you actually want. This can work in reverse too. So, anyhow, Morona, I hope this long explanation helps you make the jump into the simulator and then into the real FPV drone world easier. Thank you and everyone else for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye!